Welcome back to Contemporary Black Voices with the team here. Intellectual scholar, Dr. SHARON Michael Chadwell, New York Times best-selling author, Caleb Alexander, and businessman, Chris Dawkins. We're going to pick up from where we left off. And Chris, you want to put that back out for our discussion?
Well, I've continually said that we've got to do for ourselves what we've been asking others to do for us. Again, I believe that, yes, somebody needs to be talking about to DeSantis, or not talking to him, but addressing that he does not want this taught in his schools. Same thing is happening here in Texas. But as we talk about charter schools, as we talk about critical race theory, as we talk about all of this, when does it come to the point to where we take the responsibility to train our own kids? Because training and education first starts at home. And a lot of that, even what's being done at home, is being lost. And until we can have some code of ethics as to how we perform, what we do, and different things, we've got to take the responsibility for ourselves and what we do. Or as everything continues to change, we're going to continue to be in the same spot.
So, if you think about it now, our family, we practice Kwanzaa, okay? Now, yeah, there's some controversies about the founder, but nonetheless, there are the principles associated with Kwanzaa is, to me, is a beginner course access to teaching families about Black history, if that's the only time you can do it. But it's an ongoing process, and I have to agree with you, is that we have outsourced the responsibility of teaching to other people, oftentimes people who don't even look like us, to our kids, to where our kids are suffering. It goes back to last week's discussion. When we integrated for access to something, but we also gave up a lot of advocacy as well.
We have more teachers probably in the Black community because that's where we had to start. When we were coming out of slavery, a lot of people were teachers. But we have not taken that asset, so to speak, that we have and used it for our good. We have never been able to do that. And I think that as we look at women wanting to get nails done or hair done and different things, those other ethnic groups have come into our community, taking our assets and used it against us, and we then have to pay somebody else to do the things that we should be doing for ourselves.
Aren't you really hitting at what when Dr. Diop was here and we were talking about charter schools and the eradication eventually of public schools? I think the parents who take an interest in their kids' education will be the ones going to charter schools. But what about, and we know this is an issue in our community, what about all the parents out there who don't give a damn? They don't even know if their son or daughter's going to school. They just assume they're. What happens to those kids?
And aren't most of those our kids?
Pardon?
Aren't most of those our kids?
That's what I'm addressing, yeah. So don't we have to dig a little further than just looking at the schools and look at the environment and the community and the parenting that's going on?
And I say yes. And I say the reason why we have those issues is because we as adults have never championed the wanting to put those things in perspective. We send our kids to those white schools. We send our kids to an environment that is hostile to them, and then we expect them to do well.
Well, that I understand it, but the issue I'm trying to address is how can I go in Caleb's house and say, "Hey, man, you better get straight because your son is cutting up." I don't have that right. I don't have that right.
And we lost that.
So you have a lot of households out there. I mean, I like to give the example of, let's say, and we know what crack.
It kind of reminds you back in the day, my mother used to say that if she did wrong, I love you, Mama. I know you didn't do this. I'm just using you as an example. But if she did wrong, everybody leading up to the house could discipline her And then, of course, by the time she got home, there was more discipline. That doesn't happen nowadays, to where we're allowed to discipline without maybe a possible fight that we have to deal with.
Yeah. And the point I was making is the crack epidemic. Look what it did to a lot of families. A mother has 3 kids, she's strung out on crack.
Yeah, I call that the government controlled crack epidemic.
Okay, but it still had an impact. You got a sister here who's going to see 3 or 4 guys the same night because all of them going to bring another hit on the fire. And you got a daughter or a son in the next room hearing all that, can't sleep. Now that child's got to go to school the next day. That's not a mother who's going to be, and I understand charter schools can be very, very, have restrictions on what, they say the parents have to be involved or they can put the kid out of the charter school. Well, if the public schools are no longer there and this is still happening, the charter schools will become what the public schools are. I mean,
That's
does
true.
it make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. But from my standpoint is that I don't have all the answers. But what I do believe is that if we continue to dialogue about it, then we will come up with the answers. But right now, we're not even talking about what we can do. We're talking about what's being done to us and what are we going to do about what's being done to us. And to me, white folks are saying, as long as you continue to let us do whatever, we're going to do what we want to do, okay? And however you decide to deal with it is up to you.
So, what well, to kind of answer your question, what can we do? Well, while our kids are still in public schools, and we have kids in there who are troubled, a lot of the parents don't know how to negotiate those ebbs and tides. There are a lot of us out there who have been in those systems to where you have to be willing to pay for us to come in to advocate. Like in special education, if you don't know that system, bring in someone, myself or someone else to come in, and we will sit at the table and advocate on your behalf, just to make sure that the needs of that child is understood from the parent's perspective and not fully on the school's perspective.
I want to get back to if you don't mind, let's go back to try to get up with where we started. Okay.
Where did we start?
And I want to throw this out for you all. I don't believe the devil's advocate. Okay. I'm a white man. I got 3 little white kids. And I'm concerned about how they look at their family, their history, and their race.
Now, who is they?
The kids.
Oh, okay.
The kids. How
Okay.
they look at their race. So you're coming to me saying, well, we want to change this whole framework of history. We want to tell the truth. We want to tell the truth. We want to tell in the history books what really happened because it's fair to us. How is that white man going to respond? And the question is, can you blame him?
No. They're going to respond how they've always responded.
Yeah.
And so
That's what's happening.
your oppressor is never going to give you the education or the tools to liberate yourself.
You got to sit back, also look at who's sitting on the textbook committees, the state textbook committees. These textbooks come in, the state textbook committee is looking at them, and there's only going to be so much information that will be allowed on those textbooks. And then, of course, we can go in as concerned citizens and discuss what's in the textbooks and what's missing in the textbooks, but still, the textbook committees will be responsible, if you will, to say, okay, we'll send these 3 companies out to schools to decide which ones they want. But basically, those 3 textbooks have been vetted.
But there's the what is it? The Texas Education Association.
Yeah.
That
They
decide
determine what goes in those textbooks.
nationwide.
Right.
Nationwide.
Well, for Texas.
Because Texas orders so many textbooks.
Yeah. It
Okay.
Yeah, it determines what goes into those books pretty
Right.
much what's printed and what goes around nationwide.
And so we get right back to our responsibility. Do we have anybody on that elected board that's looking out for us?
And in conservative Texas, no one's going to be elected statewide to serve on that board.
And so it's a very conservative board.
It's a very conservative board.
And so they're going to be looking out for my interests. I'm a white conservative
Right,
father.
right.
They're going to be looking out for my interests,
Right.
not yours.
That's correct.
So how do we deal with that? And can you blame him? Do you blame him
No, not at all.
for looking out for his best interests?
Not at all.
I mean, teaching this kid that Davy Crockett was a hero.
Not at all. Because
when he gave protection for slavery.
Because
Yeah.
if the situation was reversed, I would want to perpetuate the dominance of my people, of my kids. It's biological. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it's just truthfully, it's biological. And so I don't blame them. And they have made a concerted effort throughout history. Once they got on top, to stay on top.
Yes.
You can't blame them.
Yeah. And I think that would be true. Not that it's right.
Not that it's right.
saying
We're not saying it's right. Right.
Let's get that clear.
Right. We're not saying it's right.
But we're saying we can't blame him because what we're doing finally is trying to change that.
Right.
You know, I'm really struggling with this because if we can't blame them, why are we talking about this?
Oh, I think we're talking about it because we know it's wrong.
Right.
Number one. And number two, as black men and black women who are all parents, we want our history to be taught to our kids so they have a positive feeling about being black.
So
and there's a contrast, there's a conflict there.
Okay, so we got a series of problems attached to that. Remember what I said last week? 80% of the classrooms are manned by white women. Okay? So even if a Black history curriculum was introduced, chances are someone non-Black will be communicating that information back to students who are Black. Okay? My thought is, yes, it would be good to have this information in schools, but as Black parents, we're going to have to start taking back ownership on how we get that information taught to our kids, you know, through the churches, through social groups, through special schools. When I was with Northside, the Japanese rented the school that I was assigned to on Saturdays to have nothing but Japanese cultural infusion. Okay? And the reason why is because a lot of these families came in under work visas from, you know, Japan, and those kids had to become fluent in Japanese, kanji, and everything else if they had to go back. But that was a full immersion. In fact, before they came into the North Side, on Saturdays, those families would drive all the way to Houston for the same program. Now, could we do something like that if we needed a school? Possibly, because the schools, you know, are empty on Saturdays. But the point I'm trying to make is we're going to have to put in the effort to do something like that. And then you can then because you're renting the building, you're renting that section of the building, then you can bring in your own teachers, retired teachers, whatever, to teach the curriculum.
I'm ready to drop the mic. I'm ready to drop the mic.
So, you know, so we're putting so much dependency, and I was a public education teacher, okay? But we're pulling full dependency on the public education system to do this. The Japanese did not depend on the public education system to teach their kids Japanese culture. They went ahead, we're going to rent a building. Their parents might have paid for it as well. And then they bought in however they were going. They fed them whatever foods they want to eat. They taught them whatever lessons they were going to taught. They cleaned up the building, and Monday morning you never knew they were in there.
Well, let me turn it around and ask it this way. What other minority asked the majority administration, public schools, to teach their culture?
To teach their culture?
Yeah, because that's what she's saying. That's what you said, right? The Japanese are coming in on Saturday and saying to teach our culture. So I'm saying, if they're saying that, okay, what other ethnic organization other than blacks are asking the public school systems to teach our culture?
I don't know of any. I know that they do it, the Jewish people do it through their their churches, don't they? They have that.
They got-
Everybody has a separate mechanism.
Right.
But my point that I'm trying to make is that no other ethnic group asks for that, basically, except us. Nobody is under the attack but us, okay? And nobody within our race is doing what you talked about doing, is to be able to solve
Well,
those
a
issues.
couple of things with that. One, the Japanese culture is not being suppressed. There's not a concerted effort to suppress Japanese contributions to world history. That's only done to us. There's not a concerted effort to suppress Chinese history or Chinese contributions to world history or European contributions to world history. That's only being done, actively done to us.
And why is that?
That is a great question.
So it goes again to where we have to grab the ball and take ownership. Okay, it's not going to be taught in schools. Fine, we got it. What are other alternatives that can be done to do it?
Here's what I wanted to ask Caleb, is that when you say none of those other ethnic groups this has happened to, who teaches our kids, okay, the reason, either the question that you asked, why is that happening, or that it is happening? Who's doing that? Who's doing that?
I
And
mean-
don't our kids deserve to know that?
They do, and you're not gonna get it from the American educational system.
Exactly.
You're not gonna get it. It has to be something that's taught at home, but there has to be one. If the parent was never taught the value of learning that, they can't impart the value of learning African contributions or African American contributions to world history. They're not gonna impart the value of that upon their children if they never understood
that's
how
the
much
problem.
of a value.
Watch your animation.
That's
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
that's the problem, isn't
That
it?
is-
Through generation after generation,
It is.
we haven't had that in the teaching in our homes. The value of being black and the value of black. I think this all started about 1965, 1970. Well, all of a sudden, you start having Black History. At San Francisco State. I could proudly say I was involved in getting it started at Cal State at LA in the just organizing to teach Black history, and eventually with San Francisco State was the first place we had Black history classes, and now we have, I know we have it here. Well, it's kind of not as strong as it was before here at UTSA. You have Black Studies. I don't know. I think the major problem that we confront is in the home. I'll be honest with you. I think
I
it's
agree.
in the home. We just don't have all our race, let's say, that are conscious of blackness. I mean, you still have, and I think I mentioned this before the show, a father would call his son, "You black MF," or "You black SOB." So what they do is they equate black with something negative. And that affects the child. And we're still dealing with that, I think. We're getting ready to close up here, so final comments. Let's start over here with Chris.
I think the conversation was great. I'm really glad to, as I said, drop the mic, that I think that we've come around to a realization that in order to change things that are happening for us in America, really on any level, we've got to do it for ourselves.
I mean, I see a concerted effort to one, hide or dismiss the structural impediments that we still go through, and that's why you have this resistance of teaching critical race theory in this country. I think that the resistance to, like, the 1619 project is part of a concerted effort to. They don't want to look at the world through a different lens. They don't want to re-examine the world through a different lens, because once you start re-examining our contributions to this country, it changes a lot of stuff. It changes the way, it changes their perspective of America. It changes, you have to examine our full contributions, not just to America, but to the world. Our contributions to this country, and I'm not just talking about buildings and building railroads, and culturally, what we contributed to this country it's incalculable.
Yeah.
Because American culture is African American culture.
Yes.
Everything from the soundtracks and the movies, that we're the first ones to do that, to the music, everything, rock and roll, soul,
food we
jazz,
eat.
R&B, rhythm and blues, everything. So everything that America exported was us. It was our culture, our fashion, the way we wear our clothes. And you had to have global buy-in of American culture in order for America to export the rest of this crap. The world had to buy in and think America was cool, and they wanted to be a part of that and a piece of that. And so our contributions to this country economically are enormous. You can never measure that because you have to have that buy-in. And so to dismiss that and saying our contributions are not even worth studying, it's ridiculous. And it's the people with the Harvard degrees that are doing that, and they are leading the people in the base who know no better. And so that's my kind of closing thoughts on it.
Okay, Dr. Sharon.
Well, I'm just going to say kudos to both your comments. I agree that our history is educational. There is educational value to our history. So, and I want to close with that statement, but I'm also going to close with this. We are welcoming everybody who has listened to today's show. Please subscribe and like the show, because we're really trying to get our viewership up, and any comments that you want to offer, please do so.
Absolutely.
How can they do that?
Oh, they can do it on YouTube. And we also have a Facebook page called Contemporary Black Voices. So please subscribe there as well and make your comments.
Okay, I think we've had a great hour with some tremendous discussions about very important issues to Black America. And so we're going to keep doing this. We, as Sharon says, Dr. Sharon says,
And Dr. Sharon.
we want you all to be a part of our team, and we want to hear from you. Tell us what you think. If you think that the writer Fred has said something dumb, say, hey, writer Fred, you're dumb. and we will share that. So we appreciate you tuning in, and we look forward to next week when we will have another topic, issue important to our race, our people, Black America, and in being important to our race, it's important to the entire country.
Amen.
So this is the writer Fred for Contemporary Black Voices saying, so long, we're telling our story, our way.